100 million people out of poverty in 30 years. We look at their results, we look at their achievements, we don't look at their process. What they had to do, for example, was to ensure that they cut out imports by industrializing their country, by taking the bit of grains that they had, selling those grains to, for example, Russia. Russia would now bring in their engineers, and they would now teach the Chinese how to build their industries. And they would use the little bit of grain that they had at the detriment and struggle of ordinary Chinese citizens, millions of whom actually died in the process, to bring in Russian steel, for example, to start their industries. Then they started producing steel, the Chinese. Then they started being able to build their industries. And now they've been able to bring out all of these people from poverty. Now, in Nigeria, we're not doing the same thing the same way, but we're doing the same thing in terms of we are using industrialization and diversification away from oil and gas into agriculture, into manufacturing, into production, into industry in such a way that we can achieve the same result. But we have to be honest with our people and to say that it's not going to be easy. Whenever you're building something that's meaningful, that's long-lasting, there is a bit of struggle involved. There's a bit of toil involved. But then everybody reaps the benefit. Let me be very particular on what I'm talking about. President Muhammadu Buhari is personally supervising a program called Made in Nigeria for Export. It's Project Mine. That's what we call it, M-I-N-E. And essentially what that entails, and he's personally...
Made in Nigeria for Nigeria?
Yes, Made in Nigeria for Export, okay. Project Mine. And President Muhammadu Buhari is supervising that project directly. It is his own personal project. He's very committed to it, and it's very personal to him. There are three different economic zones to start out, special economic zones, SEZ, that we're starting out with. One is in the east, which is the Enyimba Economic City in Aba, right, across 3 local governments, including Ukwa West, where you have very high gas deposits, etc. Already on behalf of the Enyimba Economic City, SEZ, we already have an MOU in place, a $2.5 billion MOU with the Ruyi Group, which is a Chinese textile manufacturer, one of their largest. They're going to supply uninterrupted power supply to the Enyimba Economic City, in addition to developing industries within that zone. So it's not just on paper, like we've heard in the past. You have actual contract agreements already signed, and we already have the investors in place to take advantage of these zones. In the north, we have the Funtua Cotton Cluster that's going to be sited in Funtua in Katsina State, which is a hub for cotton production. That's where we're going to site textile mills and textile production and textile and cotton farms, etc., to ensure that we have the supply that meets the demand. And to that effect, we've already signed an MOU of $200 million that was going to create 700,000 jobs with the Danish textile manufacturer Vlisco. Vlisco is well known across the continent. They've already signed that deal with us to supply, to build capacity in factories within that Funtua cotton cluster. On the other side, on the west, we also have the Lekki Industrial Park, which is the 3rd special economic zone under Project Mine, which is really going to focus in on core industries that are competitive, that can take advantage of the locational advantage that Lagos provides. So you have all of this in place. Already we've already put aside 14 billion naira in the 2020 budget just to get all of the basic engineering frameworks in place. But in addition to that, the major bulk of the funding, it's only 25% owned by government. 75% is going to be owned by multilateral agencies like the African Development Bank, like the Afrexim Bank, and other multilateral agencies, in addition to our private investors that have already signed MOUs with us. We expect that we are going to increase manufacturing percentage to GDP from the current rate of approximately 4% to get to about 20% manufacturing contribution to GDP by 2025. That is 6 years from now. We believe that not only are we going to accomplish that, but we're also going to accomplish in hard monetary terms about $30 billion annual export contribution to our GDP as well by 2025. So this is, Project Mine is very central to that process of moving from import to export. And that's not even including what's going on in agro-processing and some of the other very critical sectors.
Is there anything government could do, or the regulatory agencies, the enforcing agencies could do to also kind of speed up what government is trying to correct? You still go to malls, you go to big shops, boutiques, and you still find a lot of foreign goods. How did they get there?
Well, no, we have to be very careful, Amini. We don't want to antagonize retail stores that are importing their goods legally. Because we do have legal importation, and we want to emphasize to our people that this is not about antagonizing people or creating enemies within the trade space. We believe in free trade. We do not believe in illegal smuggling or illicit trade. And so if you go into a store, for example, and they have a whole bunch of imported Gucci and Versace and all these other brands and imported wine and all that, that's well within their right, so long as they have imported it legally, so long as they have paid the right customs and duties to our customs, and we've gotten our revenue out of it, they're more than free. The main thing is wherever we can ensure that we can create the production capacity to ensure that what is previously imported is now produced locally, then you've now opened up the space to demonopolize, number one, and then also to ensure that they have adequate competition and then prices can come down. Imagine, for example, if Hennessy, for example, had a production outfit in Lagos or across anywhere in Nigeria, for example. These are the issues, and I think we have to address, first of all, the superstructure, the issues of reliable power supply, the issues of port reforms, the issues of the road construction that we're seeing around the country, rail construction around the country. These are the kinds of kind of superstructure or core infrastructure that's required to bring down the cost of production, to encourage more industries to move into the country so that we can do a bit more in local production as opposed to raw importation.
Well, let's look at the traders now. A few days ago, I had a chat with the president of National Association of Nigerian Traders, and he went into a kind of orientation for them to have a change of mind. Yeah. If you have smugglers in your midst, expose them. What's your take in this direction?
There's no doubt about the fact that that is absolutely necessary. This is a joint task. Governance is not for government alone. Governance is for the people who have the actual power, because ultimately they had the power to install whoever is in government through the electoral process. So it is a joint task. And I think for us, we've already been very clear. We just launched the ICPC toll-free line that has to do with all forms of corrupt practices, to be able to have that access to immediately on demand call in corruption wherever we see it, whether it's in smuggling, whether it's in fraud within offices, private or public, and that's 0800 call ICPC, 0800 call ICPC. So that's available on that regard, not to speak
of... toll-free?
It's toll-free. It's a toll-free line. And obviously you have the usual process as well, where you can petition the EFCC and the ICPC, etc. But we have that new toll-free line to make it even easier for our people. Let me just say this very quickly, Omeni. When you look at the entire scope of what's happening in the country, and when we talk about the orientation of our people toward production instead of consumption, a big part of that is the fight against corruption. Because let's be honest, when there's free money, the natural propensity of a human being is that if they receive free money, they'll feel very free to spend it. But if you work very hard and you've sweated and you've toiled for the money that you have, you'll be very aware of how you spend that money, no matter how big or no matter how small. And that's what President Muhammadu Buhari understands. And that's why from 2009 to 2019, 10 years, all of our, the EFCC, total cash collection in terms of asset recovery in cash was approximately 1.28 trillion naira in 10 years. Out of that 1.28 trillion naira, in the last 4 years, from 2015 to 2019, 73% of that total was accumulated, was recovered under this administration. In hard monetary terms, that's about 939 billion naira out of 1.28 trillion naira. That was done in the last 4 years, as opposed to the 27% that was done in the previous 6 years. So that speaks to the strength and efficiency of the anti-corruption fight under President Muhammadu Buhari, and ultimately that's relevant here, because if we're able to cut down on the kinds of inefficiencies and the kinds of corruption we've seen, then Nigerians are going to be much more committed to ensuring that the monies they earn legitimately are spent very wisely and are spent on those things that they can afford, and hopefully that will be to encourage our local producers by patronizing locally made goods.
Thank you so much, Ajuri Ngelale, SSA to the President on Public Affairs. It was nice having you on Inside today.
It's been a great pleasure. God bless you.
Up next on Inside is the interview segment. Don't go away. Birth registration is the official recording of a child's birth by the government. This process establishes the existence of a child under law and provides the foundation for safeguarding many children, civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. In Nigeria, by the records, only about 30% of children under the age of 5 years have had their birth registered. To achieve the registration for children in Nigeria, the government, through the National Population Commission, in conjunction, in collaboration with UNICEF and other development partners, is doing everything possible to knock off the bottlenecks to achieve this and even greater results. So our focus today is birth registration and planning in Nigeria. Where are we with this? My guest is the acting chairman, National Population Commission in Nigeria, Bimbola Salu Hundiyen. Thanks for joining me on Insight.
Thank you very much.
Quickly, people want to ask, where are we with the collaboration between the National Population Commission and development partners? Are we on track? Have we lost traction? Has it relapsed?
Well, thank you very much. I would have wanted a question that relates directly to where are we regarding birth registration of our children in Nigeria. Because with or without collaboration with the development partners, we must register our children.
We'll get to that.
Thank you. You know, because the National Population Commission is the only government agency that is empowered constitutionally to register the birth, death of people who are born and who die in Nigeria. So it is a constitutional duty which we must perform. Because it's such a humongous duty, we collaborate with our development partners like the UNICEF, you have the UNFPA, the USAID, to carry out this. Just like we collaborate with them on a lot of surveys that we carry out. For example, currently, the survey that we call Verbal and Social Autopsy, that's VASA for short, is ongoing in the country. This has to deal also with children. But this is based on a previous survey that we had conducted in conjunction with our development partners. That one is called the National Demographic Health Survey. It's based on that we are now doing the VASA. From that, we discovered that children under 5, the rate at which they are dying is not the best for the country. It's quite high. And now what we are doing with the VASA is we'll visit those households that we had sampled during the NDHS to say, okay, your child died before the child was 27 days old. We call such ones neonatal. If the child dies within 6 months, that's infant mortality. And then we have children between that period and under 5. So we'd like to know the causes. VASA basically is a causal effect. It's a causal survey. That's how I would call it, either causal or causation, any grammar you want. We want to find out the causes of death in those households. You know, it is through this data that the government can begin to make policies and they can begin to plan and then make sure that these policies and plannings are implemented to save the lives of our future. Our children are our future. We don't want them to be dying. They should survive and live better lives because we're all going to hand over to them. So that is it. So regarding your question on birth registration, we are actually still collaborating with UNICEF. I must say they've been very wonderful. And despite that, we still have huge backlog. But what we are looking at doing now at the National Population Commission, because we realize that the birth registration, like you did say in the introduction, what all that means is that it is a foundational identity. Nobody is known until you're born. And how you're known is the name they call you at birth. Nobody grows up to 18 before they begin to call you. When you're born, your people, our culture they say, oh, this child is named, if they are twins, for example, in Yoruba land, they say, oh, these are twins. These ones bring in their names from heaven. So you have Taiwo and Kendi. That's a foundational identity. If they are not, they name them Bimbo, Ngozi, Hawa. It's a foundational identity. And that is an identity that the United Nations has said it's a universal human right. Every human being on earth must have a foundational identity. And that foundational identity is strictly tied to where you're born. This is how the national demographics are defined. If you're born here, that child is born here, and the parents are from here, then we say the child is a Nigerian.
So how do you infuse this with planning?
How we do that is, once we are able to give government that foundational data, for example, I can tell you it's real time. You can go online and check what we have now with UNICEF. We can tell you how many children are born in a particular month in a state. So if the governor, or let me say government of that state, looks at it and says, okay, I have 10 children born in my state this month, and in the last 6 months I've had another 10, 10, 10, for example, then you know that year you have 60. Maybe the next year again you also have 60.
So as you're saying now, if we go to your portal,
yes,
and click.
Not NPC portal, okay. Is a special portal that we have for birth registration. It's called, it's a lengthy thing, okay. But I can give it to you before
but as we speak, if you go to that portal, you check, you can have an updated data across the country.
Yes, of how many children were born. It's an online, it's a real-time portal, so you can see that. And then we give this data to the government, and the government looks at it and says, okay, in the last 2 years, I've had 20 children born all over the Federation. That means I must begin to plan in terms of education, primary school that can accommodate 20 children. That means if 2 were born in the South, 10 in the North, that means I must have more primary schools in the North in the next 2 years than in the South. And then after 6 years, we would also let you know how many children have been able to go through these primary schools. And then the government will also be able to plan, okay, these ones must be in secondary school before 6 years. So you see, because for any nation to experience accelerated, and I mean every word I'm saying here, incremental, predictable and sustainable progress, which will be irreversible, you must use data. This is what we do. We generate data for policies, for plannings, for implementations, and then for monitoring as well. Data tells the government where you are, where you can be, and how you can get there. If you have more female children being born, then you know, okay, by the time they get to puberty age, we must increase certain things in our health areas. When these children are born, then we know how many will need vaccines. Then you know what hospitals to build, schools, infrastructure, because where they are born is also reflected in part of the questions we ask before we issue you the birth certificate, you know. And so you'll be able to know these areas, these are the children here, then by this time they are going up to this, the parents are also there. What do we do there? Do we provide more schools? Do we provide markets? It's for planning. Then the country can know how many people truly are Nigerians. That's why we have decided that since it's a foundational identity which speaks to integrity, because a man without identity has no integrity. Who are you? That's what it simply means. So we do that, and we are now saying we will give birth certificate to every Nigerian. We'll start first with our Mr. President, and then we go to all the older generations, and then we begin to give while we are continuing with the children. If every Nigerian has a birth registration, the work of secondary institutions, institutions that give secondary identity cards, will be made easier. For example, the work of NIMSI will become easier because you will have to now produce your birth registration to NIMSI. You'd have to produce your birth registration to maybe the banks or your BVN. You have to produce it to obtain a passport. Then they know you're truly a Nigerian. If we don't do that, and you don't have that, and IMSI gives an identity card, which they might likely give, I'm not saying they do that, which is likely because of the porosity of our borders, you know that. Because a Nigerian speaks the same language, like probably an Hausa man, he looks like us, he has the same name. Somebody from the Republic of Benin, next to Badagry, where I come from, has my name, speaks my language. So if he comes into the country to come and work or something, and he doesn't have a birth certificate to show that he's a true Nigerian, his parents were here, he can just walk up to NIMSI and say, I'm a Nigerian, this is my name, this, you know what I mean, and that's it. And you know, that is not good for any nation. It does not aid planning. So we, as a foundational data hub of this nation, must give you this identity of birth registration. We carry out, of course, other surveys, if you want to know.
Where are we, if I may digress a bit, with the routine national population census? Where are we with it?
That's a huge question, but I can tell you, I know why you're asking that question. I've been asked this question several times.
I can be sure this interview will not be complete without that question.
It's okay. I can tell you now that the National Population Commission has recognized its role as the warehouse of national data, constitutionally so empowered. The National Population Commission is poised now to give not only foundational data, but data that will move Nigeria forward. We are very happy that Mr. President is also talking about data. He's worried about the population of this country. We are blessed to have a president that is worried about her population, because that's what Mr. President is talking about. And I want to use this medium to tell Mr. President that the only agency body that can help him soothe his heart pains about the population of this country, to enable him to give the better life he wants to give to Nigerians, is a National Population Commission. Mr. President, sir, will give you data that will lead you to next level for Nigerians, because we'll give you data on children, we'll give you data on women, we'll give you data on our youths, we'll give you data on the men, we'll give you data that will help you plan, sir, and know whether you should build a road from point N to point Z. We'll give you data that will help our governors to prepare budgetary provisions that will meet the needs of the citizens they are to govern. We'll give you data that will help Mr. President to even be able to check corruption. Because if you know you should have only 12 children in a particular school at a particular location, there is no point anybody telling them he's going to do 20 schools. Data will check corruption. Data will give way for progress and prosperity for this nation. So
will there be any national population census conducted anytime soon?
I must say that's a policy decision, but with what we're doing now and with the consciousness of everybody that we need data, I believe Mr. President is actually thinking seriously about a census.
Okay. One of the agencies that Mr. President consulted after his victory at his first term, 2015, was the National Population Commission, National Identity Management Commission, and I think INEC, NCC, and the mandate and directive they got from Mr. President then was go and meet and harmonize data in Nigeria. And I hear that you were supposed to be the nucleus of this project. Where are we with it?
Well, we're Nigerians, we want to be honest with ourselves. We haven't gone too far with that. But like I said, the National Population Commission has rebranded. We're talking to NIMSI now. A few weeks ago, I was in a meeting with NBS. We all now realize that giving Nigerians better life is not the duty of Mr. President alone or NCA or anybody. It's a national duty. It's for you, it's for me, it's for everybody. So we must work together. It was a wise decision, wise directive of Mr. President, and we are dutifully bound to carry this out for the benefit of Nigerians, to give better life to every Nigerian.
Okay, back to our concern. So far, by the records I reeled out, let me be very specific. In Nigeria, only 30% of children under the age of 5 years have had their birth registered. You're giving us a general picture. Do you plan to jack it away from there?
Yeah.
Maybe by the next time maybe I meet or yours in other platforms of the NT, you're telling us maybe we have done 50, 60%.
I can assure you we're really working hard towards that. I want you to know that the National Population Commission has offices in all the states of the Federation, in all the 774 local governments of this Federation. Not just that, we also have offices, especially this time, registration centers birth registration centers in wards, in locations that are not even, that we're just scattered all over.
Yep.
But the truth is, we don't have enough registration centers. So I'm also using this medium to appeal to our governors to work hand in hand with the National Population Commission and invest in the registration of their citizens. They cannot plan without this data. Therefore, they need to collaborate with the federal government, because federal government cannot do it all alone. We're all Nigerians. We need more registration centers. And at the way we are working, we also do what we call mop-up exercise. What we mean by that is the UNICEF has been very supportive in that area as well. We go, apart from regular daily registration, which we do, you know, our staff are even trained to watch out on their streets. If we hear there's a naming ceremony, we go there, we felicitate with them, and we tell them, is this child registered? If not, please come and register the child with us. This is where we are. I even tell our staff now, go with your forms, give them your number, let them come to the office, conclude the registration, because birth registration, and let them know this, birth registration is free. You don't pay a dime for it.
Okay. Which centers are captured? Because in Nigeria you have government hospitals, private hospitals, foreign hospitals, traditional centers, religious-based centers, and the ones that are not even captured. How do you harmonize this? Because Nigeria is huge.
That's true. And that's a very good question, sir. And I'd like to say this also, that all the centers are captured, but maybe not every one of them. You get what I'm saying, sir? We have all these centers captured, but not probably all of them. And this is also due to some logistics that we have problems with. For example, the traditional birth attendants, we talk to them a lot. We work with them. And what we intend to do now is we're scaling it up. We've been doing that. But we want to now hold a national meeting with the Council of Emirs and Obas and the Obis. So we're now focusing more on the traditional institutions, the faith-based organizations, and I must also say this to all our hospitals, a lot of them have not cooperated with us.
Why?
The reason is some of them don't think our staff should be in their hospital. We would look for other ways. What we're trying to do is to actually sit with them and see better ways of working with them. We do go there to capture.
Does that impede the operations?
In a way, it does, because sometimes these people, when they give birth, like, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even have a National Population Commission birth certificate for my children until many years after. A lot of elites don't even know. It's even the rural area, because we work more there, that we give these things to. Elites, because you have your child in a good hospital, there's a birth certificate. It's when you now go to, like, the embassy or somewhere, and they insist on National Population Commission, oh, they are there, I didn't know that, you know. So we're also trying to build more on our advocacy with all these organizations. You can't ever do more than enough. Nigeria is a big country. Nobody manages this country based on estimates, extrapolations, and all that. We must have data, and we are poised to provide this data. But we need more empowerment from Mr. President. He's done a lot for us, but we are Olivertis. We're asking for more, because we want to make Mr. President happy. We want to give him the solution to the problem of Nigeria. Data will give solution to insurgency problems, because we deal with migration, you know. It will give solution to even corruption.
Just like you said, we can't have enough all the time. We can't have all the time to discuss this. I believe maybe we'll have another opportunity to discuss this. Bimbola Salu Hodinye.
Thank you.
Sometimes having you on Insight.
Thank you very much.
Don't go away. We have the media review segment next on Insight. Stay with us.
Thanks for joining us on the Media Review segment of the program today. Today we shall be taking a look at journalism and social responsibility. Of course, we all know that journalism is a social institution expected to bridge the gaps in society. But when there's interest at play, what should a journalist do? My guest, Dr. Nicholas Igwe Nago, the Deputy Director, International Institute of Journalism, will provide answers. It's nice to have you in our studio.
Thank you very much.
All right, when we talk about journalism and social responsibility, at what point should the profession be socially responsible?
Well, journalism and social responsibility it's two sides of the same coin. You know, you can't really practice journalism without being responsible. And being responsible is to the interest of the country. That is where national interest comes in. You know, for you to be a responsible journalist, you need to have good understanding of the national interest of the country you represent. But I put it to you that majority of our journalists don't even know what makes up the national interest.
Okay.
Because if you don't know what national interest is, it will be difficult to know how responsible you are. So measuring social responsibility is tantamount to understanding national interest of a country. But let me start from probably giving an insight on what national interest is. Every country has a national interest which they protect. And what this national interest is simply a country's goals, aspirations, and ambitions that may be military, economic, political, or otherwise. You know, every country has this, and that is what they use to, work on their foreign policies or international relations, as the case may be. It is the foundation of international relations. And you see that closely related to national interest is the issue of ideology.
Okay.
You know, and ideology is nothing other than a set of ethical setup or doctrines or principles which guide a country. You know, which decides for a country which way to go and which way not to go.
Yeah. Okay, now I want to ask you this. Now, when you talk about national interest,
yeah,
in pursuance of that, is it not for the general public?
It's for general public, but
okay.
General public is nothing without the press.
Okay.
Yes, if you remember what former President of the United States said, Thomas Jefferson, he said that he would prefer a society where there is a press without government.
Okay.
That society will prosper better than a state where there is government without press. So what the people know is what the media tell them. That's how the world has grown now. Believe it or not, that's what it is. And that's why media has become so important or significant that all eyes and attention are on the media. So that notwithstanding, we as individuals equally need to do our own part to protect our national interests, because we equally move around the world, and how we depict our country and its aspiration is how the world sees us. So responsibility for the journalists will end where the citizenry, the governance, and when all these things are put together and there is a focus, that's where the result begins to show.
Okay, now let's talk about the issue of fake news. Just recently, the Minister of Information and Culture actually met with some online publishers on this particular issue. Now, when we talk about ethics, do we still have ethics in the profession?
Yes, I would say we
because
do.
the rate at which fake news move and spread, it's really disturbing.
It is disturbing to everyone. In fact, if you look at our constitution, you will discover that the constitution empowers everybody to become a journalist, so to say.
Okay.
Because we have fundamental rights of expression of our opinion, you know, either in writing or in speech.
Okay.
And that's why you see a lot of people, you know, saying anything and getting away with it, you know. So the issue of fake news is a serious problem. It's a problem that we must tackle based on education. It may be very extremely difficult to cut it out or stamp it out by mere legislation and all that. That will be very difficult considering the new media that is with us today.
Yes.
But if we have the ability to know what is right and what is wrong and how to approach information and messages when they come to you, we are likely to get, you know, to a reasonable extent in stamping it out. Let's take, for instance, in advanced countries, the same thing that happens like fake news here, equally takes place there.
Of course.
But the difference is that the citizenry are more equipped in sipping through to know the correct information and how far they can trust the information. For us in Nigeria, we lack that understanding. There is what we call media and information literacy. MIL. UNESCO is trying to pursue it in Africa right now, but this has been ongoing around the world for a very long time. Children are taught on how to use the media right from primary, secondary, and university. Yeah. So nothing emanating from the media comes to them as a surprise. So they are well
they are groomed
in managing media messages.
Okay.
So when they see WhatsApp, alarming WhatsApp calls and messages and pictures, they can digest and forget about it. They don't even make an issue on it, unlike us in Africa here, where somebody could sit down somewhere, armchair journalism, come up with issues, do Photoshop and all that,
put them
together and then push them out. And before you know it, people are calling their distant relatives in Lagos, in the east, in Maiduguri. They are killing people because they are killing in the east. Before you know it, panic everywhere.
Okay. But you know that there are countries that actually check what goes out and what comes in?
Well, there may be.
Some don't even allow their people
Yes.
or the citizens to send anything out. It has to be within them.
Yes, but what you ask yourself, those countries that do that, how far do they go? How do they fare?
They fare well.
In comparison, like, which country will you give an example? Does America do it?
China does it.
It's China. If you know what is happening in China, this is not a program for China, but you see, there are more atrocities in China than we know.
Okay.
Only that the media is giving you what you need to know.
Okay.
So that's it. Nigeria is so open. China cannot afford to be as open as Nigeria.
Okay.
If they become as open as Nigeria, all hell will be let loose. I'm telling you the truth.
Okay. All right. Now, fake news is actually moving very fast.
Yes.
Here in Nigeria now. How can we curb this? What can be done? What can journalists do to help?
Okay. There's a lot journalists can do to help in covering fake news. One, they should not allow themselves to be deceived by this news.
Okay.
Because there have been cases where mainstream media has ended up, one or two of them have ended up publishing an issue that is going on social media, which nobody has any proof or facts.
No verification.
Yes, no verification. They've gone ahead thinking it is the right thing, only for them to later apologize. I don't want to mention any media house so that it doesn't look as if there is on record. So the only thing we can do to contain fake news is that mainstream media, which is the common man's last hope in information, they should not allow themselves to be deceived. They should treat all news sources emanating from social media as a source and not as a news. They can do further verifications, because what is coming up now is that a lot of Nigerians now know that when an information is flying around and no broadcast media talks about it, no newspaper publishes it, they don't believe it anymore.
Of course.
So it's gradually gaining grounds. So we should maintain that tempo. The mainstream media should equally try as much as possible to let the people know that information must come from them. Their information are the only verifiable information, and that other sources are good, but they should not treat it as a final, news or whatever.
Okay. All right, Dr. Nicholas Igwenago, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Always ensure that you verify. That's it on this week's edition of the Media Review.
Well, it's time to go, Lizzie.
Well, very simple. Always do the right thing. Promote Nigeria. Buy made in Nigeria. Wear made in Nigeria, like our guest said. It's very important. It's for our development, always.
And if you consume Nigeria, preach Nigeria, and eat Nigerian products, it jacks up the economy. Imagine a local farmer who does plantain, now converts from just doing the plantain, converts it to flour, and also exports. Thanks for being part of Insight today. What do you say, Lizzie?
We'll see you next week. Stay with us.
And as always, make time to be there. On behalf of all of us, let's be there. Bye-bye.
That the economy of the future is technologically driven is becoming a reality, especially with the rate at which the internet is gaining momentum. Whether in the bus, office, or even at home, connecting with the rest of the world has become simplified like ABC. This compelling trend explains why the global community set aside 29th of October as a day to generate conversation on how the internet can be used to improve the standards of living. Today on Panorama from the Lagos Network Center, we will be examining internet penetration, infrastructure, and positioning Nigeria on global pedestrian to solve pressing societal challenges with the internet revolution. I am Jennifer Igwe. Thanks for joining us. Starting with technology. Now, technology is the key for effective policing in the 21st century, and the Nigerian police has continued to equip its officers with necessary training to meet growing threats and security challenges. Dr. Guyemi, who was at the opening ceremony of a conference and retreat for senior police officers, reports that the federal government renewed its commitment to providing improved welfare for police officers at the event.
Cybercrime, terrorism, as well as proliferation of firearms have posed challenges to modern-day policing. Despite these challenges, the Nigerian Police Force have recorded many successes, as this year alone, more than 2,348 armed robbery suspects, over 1,412 suspected kidnappers, 684 murder suspects, and 1,513 cultists have been arrested, while 826 kidnapped victims were rescued. 1,660 firearms and 1,612 stolen vehicles were recovered. At this conference, aimed at taking stock and training senior officers for better service, Vice President Yemi Oshibajo is charging the leadership of the force to ensure professionalism and compliance with the rule of law in its interactions with the people.
And it's the duty of you senior and strategic leaders of the police force to ensure that impunity of any kind is discouraged and punished where it is found.
The mandate of the recently signed Police Trust Fund by President Muhammadu Buhari is to ensure welfare of officers.
Under my watch is determined to ensure that the police force and its members are given a state-of-the-art equipment to help in combating crime and criminality.
The expectation of the federal government and indeed the nation at large for a police force that is knowledge-driven, rule of law guided, community-oriented, technology-compliant, and intelligence-led shall be achieved.
The senior officers are expected to come up with effective solutions in the areas of ICT, equipment, and community policing strategies. In Lagos, Dotun Ukmiemi, NTA News.
Now, President Muhammadu Buhari is in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, ahead of the Future Investment Initiative organized by Public Investment Fund of the Kingdom. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that events to be held under the patronage of the Saudi monarch, King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, will have in attendance 4,000 delegates from more than 90 countries.
President Muhammadu Buhari, accompanied by the governors of Borno, Katsina and Kebbi states, arrived at the Royal Terminal of King Khalid International Airport, Riyadh, at 10 o'clock Monday evening local time. On hand to accord him a befitting reception was a high-powered Saudi government delegation led by the governor of Riyadh province, Faisal bin Badar Al Saud. Also at the airport were the Nigerian ambassador to Saudi Arabia, ministers of foreign affairs, communications, as well as trade and investment, Minister of State for Petroleum, the National Security Advisor, Director General, National Intelligence Agency, and other senior government officials. At the Future Investment Initiative Forum, beginning on Tuesday, President Buhari will speak about the economic opportunities that abound in Nigeria, the effectiveness of his administration's policies to improve the business environment, and invite investors to the country.
This is a conference of a unique type. People, in effect, who will be here for about 3 days debating the future of investment. Which direction is it taking? Which direction is industry taking? So it is important then you are here because it then says that you are into global reckoning and that you are also a factor to reckon with. It's about the future, and hopefully we will also help in building, in partnership with all of the participants here, a bright future for our own country, for the continent of Africa.
And on the sidelines of the event, President Buhari will hold bilateral talks with the Saudi monarch, King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, as well as King Abdullah II of Jordan.
Nigeria would seek a lot of opportunities with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. There will be discussions on investment, particularly in the oil sector. We have big projects that are awaiting funding. And the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has an enormously big sovereign wealth fund with huge sums of money available for investment. We hope we'll get them interested in projects like the AKK gas pipeline, Abuja, Ajaokuta, Abuja, Kaduna, Kano, investment in refineries, and a lot of these things. With the Jordanians, the focus has largely been on security. Some of the discussions we have had in the past actually were to have led to the delivery in Nigeria of thousands of tankers, military tankers. We hope that we'll advance that discussion and that some of those things we agreed with them will come to fruition.
The president will also participate in the high-level event titled What is Next for Africa, to discuss how will investment and trade transform the continent into the next great economic success story. From Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Adamu Sambo, NTA.
And on minimum wage, now state governors are not against the payment of 30,000 naira as national minimum wage, but there is every possibility of variation in states due to their abilities to pay. Chairman, Nigeria's Governors Forum, Kayode Fayemi, said this at the forum at the forum's meeting in Abuja at Debola Brooklyn Sunday. Report.
Although they are from different political parties, but their unity of purpose is a clear indication of their determination to serve the people better, especially in the area of workers' welfare.
New minimum wage law.
While stating the position of the governors on the directive by the Federal Executive Council that National Salaries, Income and Wages Commission and the Ministry of Labour and Employment to send consequential adjustment wage table to the states, Governor Fayemi said,
"It's a part of the tripartite negotiations, but states also know that there will be consequential adjustments, but that will be determined by what happens on a state-by-state basis, because there are different number of workers at state level. There are different issues at state level. Every state has its own trade union, joint negotiating committee, and they will undertake this discussion with their state governments.
The forum also commended the rapid response by healthcare agencies in the country to contain the August 2019 yellow fever outbreak.
Members pledged to commit counterpart resources to strengthen mass vaccination campaigns in our respective states. National Health Insurance Scheme.
Governor Kayode Fayemi said in the last 1 year, states have registered over 2 million people compared to 5 million Nigerians registered under the National Health Insurance Scheme over the last 14 years. Adebola Brooksland Sunday, NTA News.
To road safety. Now, reducing tanker-related accidents on Nigerian roads was a focus of a stakeholders meeting held in Lagos. Dr. Oguyemi reports that the consensus reached bordered on ensuring that trucks scale integrity tests and possess good tracking system before they are deployed for petroleum lifting on the highway.
Accidents involving fuel tankers and other articulated vehicles have been a recurring decimal in Nigeria. A better percentage of these accidents occur in Lagos, as the state accounts for no less than 70% of national maritime cargo freight. The most recent involved two different incidents, the first involving two trucks on Ozumba-Umbadiwe and another on a Todola Bridge in Ward Bega, involving 5 vehicles, including a truck and a bus. A life was lost. This stakeholders meeting is preferring lasting solutions to the problem.
For that to happen, we are pleading for all stakeholders to please bring your talent on the table to have a very safe transportation of our products to all locations.
Ensuring safe petroleum products transportation system in the downstream sector is another area the meeting focused upon.
We have all this bad road all over. And that's why we are trying to tell the government that even we know that they can't repair all Nigerian roads at the same time, but they have to do palliative measure.
If you take care of the human skills there, however bad the road is, the accidents will be manageable. So we need here to be able to address the fact that we need to look at the human angle to these problems.
Authorities have decided to henceforth apply appropriate sanctions against unsafe acts by tanker drivers on Nigerian roads. In Lagos, Dotun Okuyemi, NTA News.
Thank you, Dotu. We'll now take a break. Panorama continues shortly. Stay with us.
Slavery is an evil practice abolished all over the world over 200 years ago. But today, human traffickers are selling human beings as slaves in Africa. It is your responsibility to make sure that you and the people you know do not fall into slavery. Don't believe fake promises of jobs abroad.
People went to say Libya, Italy no use you when they carry me on top water. 4 days now they lock me for inside house, no food, no water. I nearly die. Now God, when me heaven and earth, now save me. If you get 1 naira for Nigeria, you get junior one, you say you no get papa, you no get mama, that make you come out. I beg go they do farm work. You better pass person when enter road.
Don't accept to travel to Europe through the Sahara Desert. You may be walking into slavery. Don't be a slave.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Welcome back. Now, for Nigeria to benefit from the internet revolution, efforts must be intensified to ensure safer internet penetration. This was the view of Lagosians as the global community marks Internet Day. Michael Olaleye reports.
The internet, no doubt, has altered the ways and means people communicate, although not deliberate attempt, but a subconscious one engineered by the advancements in technology. Today, the world is no longer a global village, but a digitalized one where smartphones and tablets have reduced the indispensability of the computer. In fact, it is an understatement that it is an internet age.
You can sit in comfort of your room and order for anything you want.
provided it is legitimate. Or you are in need of money, you quickly go to ATM and withdraw your money. This has not been possible some years back, but now we have it.
Since 2005, when the International Internet Day was first celebrated shortly after the summit of the Information Society in Tunisia, the world has experienced a lot of progress. But where then do Nigeria rank in terms of internet penetration?
Telecommunication giant should actually do more to widen their broadwidth in order that those in the inner corners of the surrounding of Nigeria can able to afford internet. Of course, the device is already there, the mobile device. Most of these mobile devices now give opportunity whereby they can actually browse. All they need is just the access.
Whether technology has done more good than harm remains the subject matter of cybercrime, but the evolution of internet fraud is a major concern to this digital era.
A security body of the ICT, should speed up their activities by inventing effective gadgets that can keep the activities of these fraudsters on the net.
Experts say there is need to enhance the understanding of technology and its functions for the internet to fulfill the mandate of improving standards of living. In Lagos, Michael Olale, NT News.
Now joining me live in the studio to talk more on this is Abdurrahman Aregbe. He is a creative director and ICT manager. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what is your assessment of internet presence in Nigeria? Where are we ranked?
We are ranked #1 in Africa right now, and we are growing so fast. Like the gap between Nigeria and other countries in Africa is over 10 million. Like we have like 90 million active internet users in Nigeria right now, and we're still growing. And so far it's going well.
And I think this is an important statistics, because I was discussing before we came on air that some years ago I checked and Kenya was ranked #1 in Africa. But if you look at in the past how many years, let me just give an instance of 5 years, the number of Nigerians on the internet, the figure I would say has tripled, because almost everyone today is on the internet.
Yes, true. Kenya is not even in the top 3 now, as we're talking right now. Nigeria is still standing at #1, and we are undisputed. Yeah, and everybody's on the internet. Like every day, people get sensitized about how to use and familiarize with the internet and how they can make life easier for themselves with whatever they're doing. Now we have market women, we have CEOs, we have our parents.
Even dogs.
Animals. Everybody's on. Even babies, 2-year-old baby, everybody's on the internet now, and so.
So what would you say are the challenges affecting internet penetration in Nigeria?
Our #1 challenges in Nigeria is network. There's almost no good network provider so far. Everybody's just advertising to be better, but really, network is our #1 issue. Our second issue is light, because you can't run the internet without light. So we don't have stable power supply. So that is a big problem for us when it comes to this. Those are the 2 major issues for now, that I would say.
But in spite of the fact that you can even get internet data package for as low as 100 naira in Nigeria, we still do not have an advantage for penetration?
No. A data of 100 naira doesn't last me personally for up to 30 minutes. It's not even up to 100 naira data is going to be like maybe 100 MB. 100 MB is just me on Instagram for like 5 minutes. Everything is gone. So, those are for people that don't really, not every internet user.
But so it shows how frequent Nigerians are on the internet, you say?
Yes.
Okay, but how would you say the internet has transformed lives in Nigeria?
A lot. Like nowadays, we have people eagerly dropping out of school and then still standing tall. Because after dropping out of school, they come to realize that there is a lot they can learn from the internet. A lot of people learn how to make up from the internet, how to, tie gele on the internet, how to cook, and the next thing, they're already selling food. And they're supplying to offices and making more money than people still studying and waiting to get out of school and then start applying for jobs and everything. So the internet is like an eye-opener for everyone. So people have got to realize that I can be whatever I want to be with the internet. So nobody's even wasting time. You see people nowadays, their 2-year-old kid is on the internet painting and drawing on tablet and everything. So it's a big eye opener, and we need to embrace it more. And now we have a problem of people using it to do scamming. It has always been there, everywhere, all over the world. Internet is used to hack and scam and do all those things. So I don't think it's only Nigeria, but Nigeria as a country needs to get better in some other aspects before we can then talk about this internet scam, because the country is not in a good shape right now. So people see that as an opportunity to just survive. So focusing on making it like the problem is the internet is very wrong.
But how can we make the internet environment safer, especially with so much, you've given examples of threats and fraud and so many dubious activities that happen online?
How we can make it safer? I think that will be to our government. They need to do what they need to do. Do your job right. You're the government, you're the governor. Do your job right. Good road, good light. Let's just have light at least 17 hours a day, at least. Let's have light for 17 hours a day and see what people will be doing. Like, I was once an animator, not anymore. Like, I know how hard it is for us to sit down and try to work on animation because there is no light. We need to use generator noise, everything. You want to be in the studio to shoot some special effect on green screen. You don't want the generator noise to interrupt what you're doing. All those little things. So just provide the basic as a governor.
Are you trying to say idleness and joblessness is one of the reasons why people resort to internet fraud?
Yes. Almost every Nigerian can just attest to that. Like, almost everybody knows a scammer. So a scammer for me is not a criminal. They say it's a criminal, but I don't want to talk much about that, but everybody knows a scammer. That's the truth.
I don't know a scammer. So when you say everybody knows a scammer,
yeah, you may not know the person is a scammer, or maybe the person could scam or can do something like that, but you know the person, but you don't know.
But will internet policing help? Do you think it will help?
No, that would be very smart. It will help. I can see they've been really doing a lot about that. I've been stopped by the police many times, and they'll stop me, go through my Gmail, go through my WhatsApp, go through so many apps. I'm like, so you guys know how to do all these things now. That's very good. But I wish you guys can do better. Like, there is other, like, okay, I've been at around 11 a.m. I've been at Adeniji Bridge, and I can see some hoodlums around. And the way they were looking at me, I was scared and I was bothered. And then I saw a policeman coming right, and I was like, these are hoodlums here, and these are policemen here, and these guys are roaming around. Probably if there's no police, they could have attacked us, but I guess that's not a topic for this show.
Yes. So what do you think is the future of internet in Nigeria?
Well, now there's already self-driving car now around the world, and I know without internet that can't work. And
So you're talking about the future of internet in Nigeria.
Yeah. So there are already self-driving cars, and then we're already having bionic arms and stuff like that that are like helping people live better and everything. So I know it's going to take Nigeria like nothing less than 20 to 15 years to get there, because we're still totally behind. So the future of internet in Nigeria is not bright. So far, the government are not doing the right thing. They need to do the right thing and create a platform where all this thing can come up. Because robotics is still not fully accepted. Yeah, we're still trying with robotics, as in we've not started using it to make our life better. So assuming that is being in place, we can talk about how, okay, Nigeria in the next 5 years, we can project and say, oh, in the next 5 years, Nigeria will be a better place. But for now, we're still striving with the little things. So as long as we're still striving with the little things, basic light, we still don't have good internet connection, we still don't have them. If that is not solved in the next 5 years, Nigeria is still not moving anywhere.
Okay, thank you. We've been discussing about internet penetration in Nigeria as the world marks Internet Day today with Abdurrahman Aregbe. He is a creative director and ICT manager. Thank you for coming to Panorama to educate us more. Now to sports. Now, Sunshine Spikers and Superforce Club celebrate their victories as champions of 2019 National Volleyball